Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth McCravey, a website designer and business coach for entrepreneurs and your host for the Breakthrough Brand podcast, the show that's all about pulling back the curtain on how to actually build a successful business. I don't skim the surface around here. If you want a deep dive into the nitty-gritty details of what it takes to run a successful business and stand out in a crowd, you're in the right place. After creating a multiple six-figure-a-year website design business in my 20s, I'm ready to share everything I've learned and everything I'm still learning because I believe the keys to building a thriving business should never be a secret. Here you'll find episodes that are actionable, direct, and fun, like friends chatting business over coffee, and a fresh, honest take on the reality of being an entrepreneur. If you're ready to master online marketing, branding, website design, mindset, and business strategy, then this is the podcast for you. It's time to build your breakthrough brand. Let's do this. All right, friends, we are walking down memory lane today, which I'm super excited about. The idea for this episode actually came to me while my husband Adam and I were having drinks at Neighbor's Bar in Franklin 2 nights ago. My mom has been in town and she actually just left this morning, but 2 nights in a row, we got to have date nights after Colin was asleep. So we did the whole put him down for bed. We were already ready to go. And then we left her and my sister with the monitor and went out, which was so fun. We have not done that much since he's been born. So super fun. Highly recommend doing that. But while we were there the other night, we were talking though about how easy it is to look at where someone is in their business or their life now and just think that it just happened or that it always looked that way without thinking about the journey to get there. And on that same note, as a business owners, once you've been doing it a while, it can be easy to forget to talk about the early days because you're so focused on what's going on now. So it's you're more interested in talking about what your last launch was like than what it was like the week you started your business. And I know I can fall into that a lot. I forget to talk about the early days, but I love talking about the early days. And I think there's so much that you can glean from that, whether you've been in business a little while or if you've been in business a long time. So this is not going to be one of those, I was sleeping on my grandma's couch and now I own a 6-figure business type of episodes. You could actually watch a funny reel I did about that exact concept 2 years ago or something when reels were just starting. That's pretty funny where I'm just kind of picking fun at that whole topic thing. But I'll link to that reel in the show notes if you want to see that. So I'm not doing that whole I was at the bottom, now I'm here. That's not what this episode is. But I do want to share with you what things were like when I was freelancing in the early days of my business and hadn't really made my business official yet, but was kind of starting to, what an actual day in the life was like, what other things I was doing to make money, what our finances were like. So I'm sharing our family's finances, all the side hustles I was doing to make money while building my business, what my workday was like between odd jobs. And I'm also going to share some lessons throughout, things that I wish I knew then that I do know now. I even found a Google Doc titled Ideas for Money Freelancing that I made back in August of 2015, right after I quit my job, that I'm going to share literally what I wrote in that document for you guys. So if you're in that first year of business ownership, or maybe you're thinking about starting a business soon, I really hope this encourages you in your journey and gives you ideas as well and gives you an actual picture of what the early days might look like. And I know everyone's journey is different, but this will give you a peek into what mine was like. And if you've been in your business longer, then I hope this will be a fun kind of get to know each other better type of episode, because it's a lot of stuff I've never shared before. Also, before I get into everything, I want to tell you at the very end of this episode, I'm sharing a special surprise with you, something coming soon at the end of June that I think you're absolutely going to love. And I feel so excited that this is the topic episode that I'm sharing about this with, because it feels so absolutely fitting, and you'll see why once you get to the end of the episode. But basically, if you've ever wanted business coaching from me, if you've ever wanted more insider trainings and content, more next level deep dives, more courses and things like that from me, if you've ever wanted a community of like-minded business owners to mastermind with, meeting the other people who listen to this podcast and getting truly support from me, more about your specific business and your specific questions, then this is going to be for you. That all that I said might actually be giving you a hint into what it is. But I'm going to share details and talk about the end of this episode. But if you are super eager and you're Elizabeth, I want the details now, head to elizabethmccravey.com/BMF BBAA. So BBAA, and you'll learn what that means when you get there. But just go to that link. I'll link to it in the show notes too, but go there and you can read all about this new thing that has been like seriously what I feel like I'm meant to do in my business. So very excited about that. Now, without further ado, let's get into the episode topic. All right, so I'm not going to share the story of my first job, quitting it, why I quit it, and that whole story, because if you've been here a bit, you've heard it before. I literally shared it on episode 1 of this podcast, and typically when I'm interviewed on other people's podcasts, it's a story I often share. So you might have heard it there too, and maybe I'll do an episode on just that sometime soon, since back what I was saying in the intro, I haven't talked about this in a while. But instead, I'm going to just jump straight to like after I quit my job. But to summarize that, I quit my job in 2015, and that's what led me on the path to starting my business. The job was at a corporate advertising agency doing design work for actually like medical related and legal type ads. I worked a lot in Illustrator. Interestingly, did a ton of After Effects, which designers, we all know After Effects. It's often everyone's least favorite Adobe program or the one that you never actually learn. But I did a lot in After Effects. It's actually one of my favorite programs after working that job. But that job was very traditional in the sense that it was like an 8 to 5:30. Those are my hours. I might have been more like 5, but often we left at 5:30. I sat at a desk all day, regardless of if there was work to do, which drove me mad. And I was freelancing while I was at this job already. So I had work left over from when I was in college, where I had a design job from an internship that turned into a job at a PR agency out in California that I worked for remotely. And I had clients from them where I was managing social media. And then I also was getting my own clients doing random design work and doing copywriting, all kinds of stuff. So I had this job, I had all this freelance work, and I decided to quit the job because, again, didn't like it, which is a whole nother story. And I thought when I quit that I would have time to find another job while still working this job. So I was not trying to start a business. I was like, I'm going to quit. I'm going to get another stable job. I loved my freelance stuff, and that was like a nice little bonus money. So I was planning to keep that up, but I planned to just find another corporate job ultimately. And I looked in the company handbook, saw that we had a 30-day notice situation where you're supposed to give 30 days when you quit. So I did that, and I was like, okay, I got 30 days. I'm going to, apply for other jobs, and then I will find another job before I'm done with this one. And instead, I left that day without a job. So I did not get an extra 30 days of payment for my work. I think they finished paying me for that week, but I left that day. And they were not very happy with me quitting, but it's okay. It all worked out. But that's kind of how I left that job. And I remember leaving that day feeling so light and free and excited. For me, walking is one of my favorite ways to think and relax. And I get my best ideas walking. Actually, the new offer I'm going to share about at the end of this episode, the idea came to me on a walk. So anyway, that day though, like 6+ years ago, basically 7 years now, I went on a walk around our apartment complex, just kind of scared, but also feeling very excited for what was next. And then next day, my first day being unemployed, I started rapidly applying for jobs around Nashville and a ton of different types of jobs. Because again, I kind of was coming into leaving this corporate job, having also worked in college with actual clients. And I felt like I had my hands in a lot of different industries. So I felt good about applying for a lot of different types of positions, felt good about doing those entry levels. So I was applying for graphic design jobs, social media marketing jobs, marketing positions in general. I was applying for advertising agencies. So that's what I just left. Public relations agencies, was applying for it all. And again, I had a variety of experience in all those fields from what I had been doing before. So I was kind of just applying and waiting. And then now that's when I get into what the early days were like in my business. So we're throwing it back when I didn't even know I was starting a business. And I actually found it was so cool to see this. Thank God for the archive that is Google Sheets, Google Doc, Google Drive, everything. But Adam and I used to do all of our budgets in spreadsheets, this really pretty spreadsheets with lots of tabs that I made in a Google Sheet. And we still have all of them. Saved in art. We have a family Google Drive folder that has all kinds of things in it. But we did for years, probably the first 3 or 4 years of our marriage, we did all of our budgeting in these sheets. And so I found some original budgets back from this time. And with Adam's permission, I'm going to like share some of his info on it. But he made $1,700 in take-home pay back then. He worked for a ministry called Young Life. He was entry level, and that's what the starting pay was back then, again, like 7 years ago for staff positions. And so he made $1,700, and his pay basically covered our rent and Wi-Fi and things like that, but with not a lot left over. And my first job made, I can't remember exactly, but around like $2,500 to $2,800 take home each month. So we really needed my income, as you can see, like kind of doing the math there. We didn't need all of it necessarily, but we needed something. But now it was gone. So even in the waiting for a job, I was looking at our situation. I'm like, I'm applying for jobs, but I also am like, I need a way to bring in income right now. We were newlyweds at the time that I quit my job, and we both came into marriage with like no savings, which stinks because I actually did make money in college. I just did not do a good job of saving any of it. So we were kind of coming into marriage with like a lot of gifts and things from having just gotten married. So we had like the basic things, which is very awesome, but we didn't have a lot of savings to like sit back on. So I found another Google Drive folder from August 2015. So basically right after I'd quit my job. And I mentioned this in the intro, but it was called Ideas for Money Freelancing. Like that's literally just the title, even with the money sign, not even the word money, as the title for the document. And it was me outlining the different ways I could make money and get close to my old salary while waiting on a new salary. That's really like, I can remember my motivation behind it. You can even see kind of with what I wrote that that's what I was thinking. And it was really fascinating for me to look at it when I was outlining this episode yesterday. And I'm actually going to post a screenshot of part of it, like the top section of it, in the blog post for this episode. So if you're like, you want to see it, you can. I'm sharing it all. But I was basically breaking down my ideas, guessing what I was calling the lowest possible payments and the more hopeful payments for different things I could do to make money. And again, I wasn't trying to start a business, but I am pretty scrappy and I like finding ways to make money. So that's kind of what this was. So to kind of share a little bit of what was on that, you can, again, go look at it if you want to look at it with me while I'm talking about it. But first thing I wrote about was yoga. So I am a certified yoga teacher and I got certified when I was in college. And so I was thinking I could go and teach yoga. So I wrote that I could teach 3 classes a week at $45 a class, or actually, I think that's wrong. No, $25 a class, and get $75 a week. And then I could do 1 private yoga lesson a week for $60 because private lessons pay more. And that would get me to about $540 a month. And then I wrote about graphic design work ideas because, again, my degree was in graphic design. So I was doing it at my old job. I'm like, okay, I could do some graphic design. I literally wrote that I could do 1 logo design project a month for $250 and 1 website design project for $500, which, yes, that's where I was thinking my prices would start. Which I just want to say, it's okay if that's where they started. Like I made it work. I raised my prices as I got better, but in my mind, that's what made sense to me for first projects. So that's what I wrote down. And then I wrote about how I could write 1 article a month for a local magazine back in my hometown that I had done work for. They paid $100 an article. And then I wrote that I could do more random design work for that PR agency I was interning at, which was about $200 a month that they would end up paying me for that. And then I read about some of the design jobs I was seeing on Upwork, which we'll get to in a minute, but I thought I might be able to get those and what that would look like pay-wise. So basically I mapped out how I could get to around $2,000 a month, which is what I felt like I might need to make, maybe more like close to Adam's salary even would work, but I was mapping it out like this. And I would just like to say a little random tidbit here. It's smart to do this, like mapping out your guesstimates on like what you can make doing different things as you're starting your business, if you are going to be doing more random stuff, or just even looking at like what services you're thinking about offering, like how much you think you could make piecemealing it together, and kind of writing out like best case and worst case scenario is really what I was doing. So anyway, I think it was really fun for me looking at that, and a good idea, I might say. Interrupting this episode with a suggestion for the small business owners listening. Ever wonder what you should do for healthcare when you and your spouse are both self-employed, so there's no work-provided health insurance to participate in? Well, when my husband Adam joined me in the entrepreneurial job space over 4 years ago, we joined Christian Healthcare Ministries instead of getting traditional health insurance. And it was the best decision for us, especially in these years of growing and raising a family while also running multiple businesses. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry and is a faith-based alternative to health insurance. We did tons of research before choosing CHM, and if you know me and Adam, you know we are all about doing the math when making big or small financial decisions. And even though it's not insurance, CHM shares 100% of eligible medical bills, which is more than the typical 70 or 80% of medical bills paid for by insurance companies. All sharing is determined by the CHM guidelines, which you can check out before and after joining. And for the mamas and mamas to be listening, you truly cannot find a better healthcare option for maternity care. I had a vaginal delivery and a C-section and birth center care and hospital care between my 2 pregnancies and births, and it was all 100% shared for. And outside of birth, we've had our share of emergency room visits and procedures as a family, and those costs were all shared by members at Christian Healthcare Ministries, leaving us only paying our monthly contribution. CHM is less expensive month to month than insurance, and because there's no network, you can choose your care with whichever providers best fit your family. I seriously just cannot recommend Christian Healthcare Ministries enough. You've got to check them out. Go to elizabethmccravey.com/CHM for more information. Also putting that link in the show notes, elizabethmccravey.com/CHM. Now back to the episode. Okay, so I want to talk about the early days of freelancing, what it really looked like, and then I have my first lesson for you. Like it said in the title of this episode, I have 4 lessons I wish I knew back then that I know now about the early days of starting a business, but what things really looked like. So early on, when I was still waiting for a job, but I was kind of exploring the idea already of doing things on my own. This is part of my story that I rarely talk about. I don't even think I mentioned it when I share the story of starting my business on the first episode of this podcast, because it's kind of confusing sometimes when you share like all the details. And so it's like when you're trying to tell a story like neatly, it makes things not neat when I share this part. But I want to share right now to say entrepreneurship is not linear. It's not always a nice, clean story with a bow on it when you think about how you started your business. So here's what that looked like. So early on, I taught yoga a few times a week. Like I said, I taught in college. I became certified in college, and that was a way that in freelancing when I was in college that I made money. But I also tried to start a personal training business, which is still crazy for me to think back on because that feels like almost a completely different version of me. It was like a version of me where I'm like, this is something I'm really passionate about, and I'm interested in entrepreneurship, but not like really truly wearing that yet as something I'm trying to do. But I loved health and fitness. I really loved everything I learned in my yoga teacher certification. And I wanted to figure out like, how can I help people with their health basically. And I was not a certified personal trainer, but I was like, I'm gonna make this work anyway. So I ended up with 2 personal training clients, which again, feels like I've never shared this before. It's so random. So shout out to those 2 original clients. I literally worked out with one of them at her office's gym. Like I went to her place of work that had a gym at some corporate place in Nashville and met with them and did like meal planning. And again, was just leading them through workouts. It was really fun. And I tried to find like some notes and things from like back when I did that, but I couldn't find anything to kind of reference. But yeah, early on, I was actually literally thinking the corporate thing didn't work. Like I tried it. I thought I was going to love working this corporate job doing design. Like that's why I studied in college. I thought it was going to be great. But maybe actually using my yoga certification could be my like career route. Because like I said, I got certified in college, but it wasn't like, it was more of like even a hobby certification. It was like, I love yoga. It's something I'm really passionate about. I think this training will grow me as a person, which it absolutely did. I learned so much about how to teach well through becoming a yoga teacher, which I think now has helped me as I'm looking at like 160 something episodes of this podcast and my course booked out designer. Like I learned a lot about effective teaching through that and so many other things. It was an awesome certification, but I didn't use it immediately except for just like as a kind of a side hustle. And most people who went through that certification with me were like, their career is going to be teaching yoga now. So it was almost like I was thinking maybe yoga teaching and personal training and fitness, all of that could be my career. And I never made it an official business. People were paying me on Venmo and I was doing it that whole way. But in a sense, I started a personal training business just under my name that I was doing for a little while. And so my first lesson for you, like I said, I have 4 lessons, things I wish I knew then that I know now, is that entrepreneurship is not linear and it is okay to change your mind. So the first business you start, whether that's like a legit business that you file an LLC for and do that whole deal, or if it's more like what I'm saying, where I started a business and didn't even really make it official, that might not be the business you end up with long term, and that is okay. If I had decided that I love teaching yoga and I love doing personal training, then that might have ended up as my career. That might have been my business. You and I might have never connected. This podcast could have been a health and fitness podcast. Who knows? But ultimately, I decided that I didn't love it, and I actually realized that fairly quickly. Hence why I had 2 clients and it didn't even last that long. You also might start a business and decide you don't like it and you want to go back to working for someone else. That is not failure. And I think in this like online business space and creative industry, we have a dialogue that's like, if you start a business and you close it for whatever reason, then you have failed somehow, that going back to the corporate world is failure, whatever. Too many people see it that way and talk about it that way. And I really wish that that was not a way it was talked about. And I think part of the reason we hear it talked about that way is honestly because the stories like what I'm saying, where it's like we had a corporate job and we hated it. And so we started a business, and that can kind of just give a bad rap for working for other people, when in reality, it's a great way to make money and enjoy your life and all those things too. And owning a business is not the only way to be successful. So anyway, I wish we'd all stop talking about that way. So I want you to hear me right now that like, if you're thinking about starting a business and you do it and you decide, I don't actually like this, I want to go do something else, that's okay. You tried, which is awesome. And now you're going to try something else. And I've actually talked about this a lot with my friend, Jenna Viviano. She's been on my podcast a few times. I've been on hers a few times. And she's a dear friend who I'm actually having coffee with tomorrow afternoon. But she's someone who quit her business. About 6 months ago or so now is when she quit it. So she closed it and went back to working for someone else after years in her business, building it to 6 figures a year and all the things, all the success. And that doesn't mean that she's bad or that her business are bad or that she failed or whatever else people want to say about quitting a business. And she might start another business someday. But it's okay to stop. So it doesn't have to be what it starts at. And another thing I haven't really shared publicly much, but I think it's like fun to mention here when we're talking about like businesses starting and changing our mind and all of that. But after my little stint as a personal trainer, but before I started really taking my business seriously, but I was freelancing. So imagine me with some social media clients and some design clients. But again, not really like an official business yet. I tried lifestyle blogging. I literally had a blog. I built it on WordPress, and it's fascinating to me again, thinking about like this season of my life, because I was trying to like make a career as a blogger, so to speak. I actually didn't even make an Instagram account for it, which is kind of not smart looking back, because that's how bloggers are really making it now, is like through influencer stuff on social media. But looking back, I actually do a lot of that now, but it's just through my actual business. So I talk about lifestyle things. I talk about my family. I talk about other things I'm interested in, but that's what I was trying to do. So I started a blog writing about things I was interested in with the hope of monetizing it through affiliate marketing and banner ads. And I quit that too. Like I started blogging. I was using Pinterest and doing all the strategy stuff there, writing tons of articles. I had guest bloggers on there. All this no longer exists on the internet, but I quit it. It's okay to start and quit things as you're on a journey to figuring out what you want to do. And on the same note, but a smaller scale, it's okay to offer a service or create a product and then change your mind and delete it. It's the same concept. You do not have to do the same thing forever. You can create something, it worked for you for a season, and then stop it. You can also create something and it not work at all and stop it. So yeah, that's just my lesson number one, is that it's it's okay to change your mind in business. And I actually would say it's healthy. And we've all seen those cute little Instagram posts about how entrepreneurship isn't linear. It's very true. It's very up and down. You might be like me and start a personal training business and a lifestyle blog and then somehow end up selling website templates and making a course for designers and building a successful business. And this new offer I'm creating, like it looks so many different ways. So back to the story, I still don't have a job. I was still applying for jobs. So I was not hearing back from anyone for interviews. And I was still trying to figure out what to do next. I kind of figured out personal training is not really going to be my thing. I was still kind of doing this blogging thing. And I want to share the next iteration, kind of the next attempt of like what it looked like starting my business. So I set myself up on care.com and on Upwork. So care.com is a babysitting type of website. It also has stuff for house sitting, dog sitting, personal assistant jobs, all kinds of things. Made myself a profile, started applying for jobs on there, mostly for nanny, but also some like dog and house sitting type stuff. And then Upwork, you've probably heard me talk about on this podcast. It's a place for freelancers in all sorts of industries to find work all over the world, typically project-based stuff, but it's also a lot more than that. And I'm so grateful for both those websites. And I do recommend them both as ways to find work, depending on what you're looking for. So my life for a long time, for about a year in this business journey looked like nannying, dog sitting, house sitting, and freelance stuff on Upwork and finding clients other ways as well. And then the yoga teaching was also still happening during this time, but I kind of phased that out gradually. And then, like I said, the personal training stuff, I kind of just stopped cold turkey. So if you've heard me on podcasts before, even on this one, I have said those words strung together like a million times on podcast interviews when people ask what my story is like, where I say, I was nanny, I was dog sitting, I was house sitting, I was freelancing, I was teaching yoga. Like I say all that. I've said so many times in a row. But I want to talk about like what it was really like day in and day out. So I did all those things before and after I officially started my business. So once my business was official, I was really making enough money from it, I stopped nannying as much. And I kept one family for a really long time, which I'll talk about. I stopped with some of the families and then I kind of slowly stopped completely. But for this episode, I want to focus on the months when I was kind of still waiting to hear back from job offers, but had also decided that I really love business stuff. And I was like, okay, like what I'm doing is kind of working. I'm getting clients on Upwork. I'm finding clients through referrals from people I know. I ended up landing 2 really big clients that were super well paying for graphic design work here in Nashville in early 2016. So again, didn't really have a business yet, but I was freelancing and I was scrapping together a good income through all of this stuff. So I had clients as a freelancer doing social media management, like I said, all sorts of random design work and other marketing things. So it was business work, nannying, and odd jobs all day, every day. And it's funny because like it really was such a hodgepodge, like what my days were like, but I loved it so much more for me personally than sitting in that office doing just design work and sitting there no matter if there was work to be done or not. Like I loved doing all these different things. So once I got into a groove with nannying, again, it didn't all happen at once, but I had 3 families that I nannied or babysit for, however you want to refer to it. And then I had a few other families where I was basically their date night babysitter, like maybe every other week or so. And then some other times where I did like an entire day with a family or because parents were out of town or like whatever it was. So funny thing to me about being a nanny though, I had never really babysat much growing up. Like I was not one of those girls who did that in high school and college for work. In high school, I actually worked at a frozen yogurt shop. And like I said, in college, I taught yoga and did freelance design as a way to make money. So I was not kid experienced at all. And the beautiful thing about it is looking back, I see God's hand in me being a nanny in so many ways. One being that I did not know about kids, like I said, but I learned a lot that actually benefits me now as a mom. Like I learned so much about taking care of kids, and especially taking care of little boys, which I have a little boy now, which is really cool. I mostly was babysitting for boys. And so it was like a firsthand training and stuff. And it was happening in a time in my life where I can actually remember it well and apply it now. Another beautiful part, a short story I want to share about it, from when I was nannying, one of the families I was with hired me literally because the parents were going through a divorce, and the logistics of their divorce caused them to need consistent childcare help every morning. And the kids were actually the same age as my sister and I were when my parents got divorced. So there's the literal same age gap between these two kids, and they are the same age that my sister and I were when my parents got divorced. So it was both healing for me. It was so healing loving those kids and caring for that family through the confusion and the sadness of having your parents get divorced. And I also think for me, like watching them as children, like go through that and being like, wow, that I was that same age, those same questions they're asking me, I was probably asking. It gave me like some kind of like internal child type of healing, which was really huge for me. And again, also feeling like I had perspective to both offer the parents and the kids because I had been through it. And it kind of, it was helpful in a lot of ways. And it really did. I felt like I was making a difference in that family in particular of like, it was more than just childcare help, but I was with them through a really difficult season. So, and it was healing for me, like I said. So that was, two beautiful things about my time as a nanny. And now I want to share what was the hard thing about having a side hustle while building my business, and also a lesson for you in this. So now looking back, especially as a parent, I see the work caring for children as literally the most important work we ever do. Whether it's that you're a daycare worker, a nanny, a babysitter, a teacher, a full-time parent, whatever it is extremely important kingdom work to care for kids. And I see that more clearly even now that I am a parent. But whenever I look back at that time, I really loved the kids I was babysitting. I found it fulfilling. I found it fun. It was definitely hard at times too. I had some temper tantrum moments with kids and things not going according to plan and all kinds of things like that too. But it was a really great side hustle while I was building my business because it was one I found fulfilling and fun. And I had a lot of great flexibility, as you've heard, of like me being able to work on my business while also doing these jobs. But the hard part though, right? There was a hard part to this, was that I was in such a mucky kind of in between place career-wise, because I knew long-term that I was not pursuing a career as a nanny full-time. You can even see that in the way I was caring for a bunch of different families versus me just having one family I'm like with all day as a nanny. It was very like a lot of different things happening at once, a big schedule to sort of manage for myself. So I didn't really know what I was doing next though. Like I just knew it wasn't going to be that forever, but I didn't know what it was going to be next. I was just doing a bunch of things, trying to make money and trying to figure it out. And I often got sideways comments from people when they looked at what my life looked like at this time, especially from friends of my parents. I still remember one of my mom's friends telling me, honey, you're not supposed to like your job. You just do it. As her advice to me in regards to like when I quit my job. And she was very, very unsettled that I quit a good first job quickly to do what, like from her perspective, looked like a hodgepodge of just random things with literally no direction at all, which I didn't know it at the time, but I did have direction. It just didn't necessarily feel like it at first because I was trying to figure out like, what do I want to do next? And like, I didn't know right off the bat. And I did figure it out as I kept going that like design and marketing and all of that was what I wanted to work towards. But at times it did kind of look like, what are you doing? A lot of uncertainty, which is totally okay. But that leads me to my lesson number 2, though, and this is a really important one. That is that there is no shame in having a side hustle or multiple side hustles while you're starting your business in order to have consistent, predictable income, or even farther into your business. I say when you're starting just now, but like as long as you need to, there is no shame in the side hustle. It does not make you less of a business owner. It does not make you any less legit. It doesn't mean you've given up. It doesn't mean you don't believe in your business. It actually just makes you really smart. And I think having a consistent source of income when your business's income is going to naturally be unpredictable in the start is a great way to help your business actually work. And I think I was able to have a lot more peace, clarity, ease of decision making, being able to take risk a bit more in my business in the early days because I had other income coming in. So it wasn't like do or die on this decision. I could pursue things that interest me. I could say no to clients I didn't want to work with, things like that. So get a side hustle if you want one or if you need one. So for for you. Maybe it's babysitting, dog sitting, house sitting, yoga teaching, the kind of work that I did. Or maybe for you, it's that you're still at your 9 to 5 and you're going to stay there longer, whether or not you love it. Maybe you're going to go part-time at your 9 to 5 and pursue your business the other half of the time. Maybe it's something like bartending or working as a waiter. Maybe it's working in someone else's online business doing different kinds of tasks they need help with. Maybe it's a side hustle business. That you're kind of like literally a side hustle business, like detailing cars, yard mowing, house cleaning, landscaping, things like that. My point is, though, those are just some ideas. But what I really want to say is don't feel afraid to be doing something in addition to the business you're pursuing. And for me back then, what I wish is that I would have had the confidence to own this more. Again, early on, I didn't even really know that was what I was doing. But once I did kind of be like, all right, I've started my business and I'm also babysitting. I wish I just would have owned that more as what I was doing versus kind of like shying away from sharing that I needed a side hustle. Because in reality, I was feeling embarrassed at times that I had a side hustle because it made me feel like to the outside world, do they think my business isn't working because I need this additional income? Which is just, again, it doesn't mean your business is not working. It means you're actually pursuing your business really smart. And what I wish I would have said to people, if you're thinking like, okay, Elizabeth, I get it, but like, what could I say to that? Here's what I look back and wish I would have said to someone who's like asking about why I have 2 jobs. So I wish I would have said, I'm a freelance designer. I'm building a design business, but I'm also babysitting right now so that I have predictable income, because starting a business has a lot of up and down months. And I actually really love what I'm doing right now. So that's what I wish I would have said. And that was the truth of it. Like that really was the truth. Like I loved what I was doing. I also needed to do it. It grew me as a person in so many ways. And again, I just love the work of being with kids. And it's funny too, because I hated calling myself a business owner back then. So you heard me in that statement just now refer to myself as a business owner. That would have actually been hard for me. Saying if I was a freelancer was about as far as I could typically get, which is totally fine. But that statement was the truth. So I wish I would have owned it more. And my encouragement for you is if you do have a side hustle in addition to your business right now, or if you're planning to stay at your 9 to 5 or like whatever your situation is, don't feel ashamed of it. Own it. And know that like many businesses before you have also built their business this way while doing something else. It's a really smart way from a financial perspective to start your business. Okay, now I'm going to walk you through what a typical day was like for me when I was nannying and working my business. And again, every day is different, as everyone wants to say about days, but this is what like a typical day might have looked like. So the first family I took to school every morning, I got to the house while the kids were still asleep, but before their mom left for work. So she and I typically had like a 10-minute where we're both there, and then she would leave for work, and then I would be left alone for them. So guess when I got there? I got there at the exciting time of 5:45 a.m. or 6 a.m., somewhere in that range was when I would arrive every day. So I basically rolled out of bed in the morning. I would brush my teeth and get dressed, and that was about it. I packed a breakfast usually the night before that I would eat in their house, but it was like I just got up, put my contacts in, brushed my teeth, and I would go. So I wasn't waking up like super early and getting like all ready for it. And then until the kids were awake, because again, I was getting there because she was leaving, but they're still asleep. She would often leave me things to do like fold laundry or unload the dishwasher or start the crock pot for dinner, pack lunches or some random things they needed that day. So like a few of the days every week, I would have some stuff like that to do. And then sometimes she didn't have anything for me to do. So in that case, I would often work on my freelance stuff and different business stuff. I would work on my business, or I would do a Devo, read on my phone, do my makeup, eat breakfast alone. It just varied, but I had like typically about an hour before they were up every day doing that. And then once they were up, I got the kids ready for school. I would make them breakfast. I would pack their lunch, and then I would literally just get them out the door to school. So that was from about 6 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. basically every day of the week. Usually like once or twice a month. There were a few days I didn't do, but that's typically what it is. So then I had a few hours after that from like 8:30 until about 12 or 11:30 where I would work on my business. I was managing social media for people. If you're kind of curious, like what did the business look like early on? I had some retainer clients where I did all their social media posting. I also was doing all sorts of different graphic design stuff. I did some logo and branding projects really early on. And then, like I said, I had 2 different Nashville clients. I'll go ahead and share. One of them, I've shared this before, but was Iroquois Steeplechase, which is referred to as steeplechase usually, but the big horse race here in Nashville that's at Percy Warner Park. If if you're local to Nashville, you probably heard about it, but I did all of their design work for 2 years for the race. So it was very seasonal work for like a few months where it was like we needed to do all the design stuff. And I was working within their brand standards and with the artwork they provided, all that sort of stuff. But I did that. And then I also did work for Logan's Roadhouse, which is headquartered here. And I did design work for them, things like menu design. I was designing like what went out in emails, like promoting discounts. I did a billboard once, which was really cool to kind of see that. So that was some of my clients. And then I had other like random businesses through Upwork. And I even worked for a staffing agency for a little while. Not for them, but I worked with a staffing agency, I should say, where they were like kind of placing me with a client that was very project-based. One of them was one of the hospitals here in Nashville where I actually did a brochure on like breastfeeding tips, like things like that. So I had all kinds of random design work that I would just, again, work on kind of in these in-between hours. So from like 8:30 till about 12, I had some design work time. And then around 12, 3 times a week, I had another child I babysat, another little boy. Like I said, I was like being trained already in how to have a son. And his parents actually owned a business. And so I would go into their home and take care of him. We left a lot of times, like most days we would get out of the house, but his parents literally worked from home. So they would be putting themselves away in their home office. And we'd kind of pretend like they're not there. And he and I would do a variety of things. Again, back to how like I would hire myself again for these kinds of roles. Like if I were these parents, I'm like, that sounds great to have like an older person taking care of your child with all this kind of stuff. But we left the house a lot. So like I would be with him at home, but then also I would take him to the park, to like one of those jump places, the bookstore, taekwondo practice. We would play together at home, all sorts of things. And I really love spending time with him. He's a really fun kid. And I also got to work on my business too. So during his nap, I would work on my business, and then during his taekwondo practice, I would drop him off at it and actually sit in the car. And it was just 30 minutes because that's how little kid practices are, I guess. And I would literally get off my laptop and sit in my car and work without Wi-Fi, just in Illustrator on whatever design project I needed to. So I was working during the available hours on my business. And then I would go straight from that job with him to picking up kids from school and taking them home and staying with them till their parents were off work. So during the carpool line, I'd often work on my business. And then these kids were older, so they often didn't really need me to like hang out with them or monitor them much once we got home. So like when they're at their house, they might be doing homework or having a snack or like playing with a friend in the neighborhood, and I would be working. And then their parents would get home around 5, and then I would go home then. And at night, some nights I babysat. Like I said, I had some families where I was kind of like their date night babysitter. Some nights I had Young Life events where I would be like leading a Bible study with the girls I led, or we had Young Life Club or like whatever it might be. Sometimes I had date nights or hung out with friends. And then some nights I also worked in my business. So it was a variety. I was not going home every day and just like sitting there on a laptop. It varied a lot. And weekends, I always was basically off from nannying unless I picked up, like I said, there were some few times where I did like all day with a family or something like that. And then, like I said, I did other odd jobs like house sitting and dog sitting every now and then. I actually found some of like my business tracking spreadsheet stuff from early on, which, by the way, Profit Sheet, which is one of my offers I sell. It's a Google sheet, or you can make it into an Excel sheet to help you track income in and income out and predict your income as a service-based business. But like I've been using a version of that I made back when I first started my business. It's way better now, but I like looked at the early version. It's like, yeah, like I was inputting all these different odd jobs as like ways I was bringing in money for our family. So what I'm guessing you noticed, and I hope you noticed, is that I really built my business in the in-betweens of these other jobs. So the nannying stuff did change day to day. So some days I take the kids to school in the morning, and then I might not have had nannying stuff until 3 p.m. So it'd be like 8 to 3. It's time for my business. And like I said earlier, as my business grew, I quit the nannying jobs. The first to go was the afternoon pickup job. And then next was the boy that I was with 3 times a week midday. And then the family I stayed with the longest was the morning family. And that was the first nannying job I had, and also like the one I stayed with the longest. But it was so early in the morning that I felt like it was actually very easy to like like work on my business and have a normal work day while keeping that job. And like I already said, I love that family so much, and it provided additional income that was really helpful at the time. And I also loved that it got me up and going in the morning. Like, I might have been more likely to like sleep in way too late, but it was like, nope, every day I've actually up at like 5:20, 5:15 every day and like getting going at it. A lot of times when I had quit the other jobs, I would go at 8:30 straight to the gym, which was nice. And then I would start work after that on my business. So that leads me to my third lesson, things I wish I knew then that I know now. And this is actually something I think I did know then, which you'll kind of hear me say as I say this, but I think this is a really good reminder for all of us. So that is, you don't have to work yourself to burnout, and you don't have to hustle your way to have a successful business. So a common trend in a lot of big business owner stories, which again, nothing wrong with this. If it's your story, it's your story, but is that they built an awesome business. But to do it, they didn't really sleep much. They neglected their marriage. They didn't spend time with their kids. They didn't really have a social life. They worked 80-hour weeks, whatever it is, and they didn't really have any hobbies. It was like all they did was their business, and they were hustling. They built the business, they got burnt out, and now they're going to teach you how to not do the same thing, basically. But it's like when you really look at the story, what you're seeing is like that they couldn't have built the business they did without the like hustling so much. And if you haven't heard that story yet, I feel like most of you guys are probably like, yes, I know what you're talking about. I've heard that kind of story. But if you haven't heard that type of story yet, just pay attention. You probably will. It's very, very, very common scenario of like hustling so much, building a really successful business, and then getting burnt out and then being like, okay, I can't maintain this anymore. I'm going to kind of switch up how I'm doing things. But what I want you to hear me say is that building a business doesn't have to be that way. And this is seriously true. I know I'm like looking back a long time ago, but I can promise you this was true then. I was not burnt out. I was not really hustling much in those early days. I did work hard, and I put in extra hours at times and like did do late nights every now and then, all that kind of stuff. That's just life. But I wasn't like hustling to death, and I did not get burned out. And in fact, I was literally telling Adam this last night on our date, but looking back, I could have stood to work more than I did early on. Like, it's just kind of funny. I'm like, yeah, like I definitely was not doing anywhere near 60 or 80-hour weeks. Probably more like 35 to 45 hours a week, even back then. And again, sometimes there are exceptions to that where you pull more hours, but like I was not working like crazy. And most of the time I felt really well balanced. So to tell you a little bit about my life back then, like 7 years ago during this time, I had a really great social life. I still feel like I have all these things, but just to go back then, I had a good social life. I was spending time focusing on my marriage. I was a newlywed. Definitely our marriage was a huge focus of mine. Didn't have kids yet, but I was focusing on our marriage. I traveled plenty. We did within our small budget, we made ways to like go on trips, usually revolving around stuff that like we got to get there for Adam's work for free, and then we'd stay. I spent plenty of time with my family. I volunteered as a Young Life leader. So I was spending a lot of hours doing volunteer work. I was involved in our church. We tithed. It wasn't like all of our money had to just go to like the business. I still read tons of books back then. I'm a big reader now. I was a big reader then. I was really into exercising. Exercise usually every day. So I was doing like normal life things while building my business and while working the odd jobs. And again, not saying it was like easy, because it wasn't. I think there was plenty about this time that was hard, but I wasn't like burning out and hustling so much that it was just like exhausting and led me to have to like quit my business now. Like it was it was hard work at times because it was like unpredictable, and because starting a business is hard, and because there is imposter syndrome, and there is comparison, and there is the constant, can I ever do this? And, you have the bad clients that make you feel like, is this really worth it? Am I horrible at this? Like I had all those kinds of situations, but I want you to hear me say that like, if you don't want to hustle to burn out to build your business, it doesn't have to be that way. Like you can build a business on like working normal hours, and still doing other things that fulfill you. And yes, business is hard. So I'm not saying, please hear me say that. I'm not saying that business will never feel hard or scary. And it never was that way for me. It was definitely hard and scary times. I'm also not saying you won't have to work long hours sometimes, but it doesn't have to look like working through the night and surviving on energy drinks to get through it all. And then I want to go ahead and share My fourth tip and my fifth tip, just back to back here, because I've already kind of told you what like a week in the life was, or a day in the life was like. But I wanted to share with you these other two tips. And these are very much more so even things that I didn't know then. The one I just shared was something like about you don't have to work yourself to burnout. I feel like subconsciously I knew that then. I've always been someone though that like naturally likes to do a lot of different things throughout the day and is unlikely to overwork. That's just not in my personality. But I kind of like subconsciously knew that then, I guess you could say. Okay. The fourth thing though, don't focus on what people are saying now, about whatever it is you're doing. If you have to focus on something, focus on what they might be saying later, or best case scenario, just don't really focus on what people are saying at all. So in the early days of starting a business, it is so easy to get in your own head about what everyone around you thinks about what you're doing. That was the case for me. Again, it might not be the case for you. I personally hope it's not the case for you, but if it is, I totally get what you're saying. And I actually can still feel like I can put myself back in that headspace of those early days when I was like basically embarrassed at times that I was pursuing something atypical, and embarrassed probably because I was afraid I'd fail, and then what would people think? Or even if I don't fail, like right now, am I failing? Maybe. And like, what are people thinking? And it was both like people I knew in like my day-to-day life, but also people who it's like we went to college or high school together and we all follow each other on Instagram. And when I post this story about like how I'm taking new clients, I'm like thinking about like, what are they thinking? And people care a lot less about what you're doing than you realize. I think that's always a good reminder, and something I remind myself now, and definitely was like something I had to remember then. It's like, they care a lot less than I'm thinking. But also something that is so wild to think about, and I hope this is a good reminder for you and something that will motivate you in your business. But the same person who's asking like, hey, how's your cute little business? Are you still doing that little business thing? Like, how's the freelancing? Like the same person who is saying that to you right now, they also years later might be buying your products and asking you to show them how you did it. And again, feels wild to think about, but that has been my story over and over again of like some of those people where I was like, they are judging me. They're like definitely talking bad about me behind my back to someone else from college or whatever, are now like, oh, wow, your business is cool. Like, how'd you do that? Or they might've been someone who bought a product from me. So it's a cool how things go around like that. And a quote I want to share with you, I heard Ali Kazaza. She is, I hope I said her last name right, but she is a podcaster, online business owner, educator person, has a podcast about like minimalism type stuff. She's really cool. But I heard her talk about this once years ago on her podcast. I don't have the episode to reference. I tried to look it up, but couldn't find it. But I keep a note in my phone, just on the notes app, where I jot down quotes I hear that I like, whether it's in a podcast or a book or whatever. And this was a quote she said that I jotted down. So she was talking about validation from others in our business. And she said, you've got to give yourself validation. By the time they do, you've already proved it. And people are really quick to give you validation when you've already made it. And that's really true. So like what she was saying, again, that quote kind of goes out of context of like what she was talking about. But she was sharing about how validation comes easy and frequently when people see you as successful. Like literally, she was talking about that right before she said that. Like, it's less once you're successful of how's your cute little business, and more of people saying, wow, it looks like your business is doing really well. Like the dialogue changes. And in reality, it's better just to not focus on it at all and to give yourself validation, like validate yourself, instead of just waiting and hoping of like, I'll feel better once other people validate me. Because like she says in her quote, by the time other people start to validate you, you've already proved it. And people are really quick to give you validation when you've made it. So give yourself validation, worry less about what others think and say. And for me, like one of my things that has kept me grounded and kept me going in my business over and over again is when I'm feeling imposter syndrome, when I'm feeling like, can I really do this? Is this really working? When something specific happens that makes running a business feel really hard, I like to ask myself, what does God say about this? And what do I know to be true in this situation? Those are two really good questions. What do I know to be true in this situation? For me, that's like I take Again, something I'm feeling, like maybe I'm feeling imposter syndrome about something specific. You can apply to the situation we're talking about in this tip. And I say, what do I know to be true? And then also, what does God say about that? Like, it's just, those are really good grounding questions in your business. If you're ever like feeling down, ask yourself those questions, journal about it, really helpful. But yeah, give yourself the validation. You need to keep going, and don't focus on what other people are saying if possible. But if you're like, I can't not focus on it, maybe visualize and get inspired by what they might say later. That's another great way to think about it. If you're like, I got to think about it, then that's a way to think about it. And my last tip, and then I'm going to share about this new thing I'm coming out with. I'm so excited about. My last tip though, this is a lame one that you've heard before, but I hope you hear it differently as I say it right now, and that you really hear it instead of just being like, I've heard that a million times. Enjoy the journey. There is joy in the journey. So don't just live your life and live your business life thinking this fill in the blank criticism about my business. It'll be better when I get there. So like, this is so hard, but it'll be better when I'm there, whatever there is. This is so annoying. This client sucks. This thing I'm doing is hard. I hate it, but it'll be better when I'm there. It is easy to do that on the business owner path, like where you're just waiting until random milestones. Like, I'll do this when I'm there, or it'll be better when I'm there. You're just waiting on these random milestones to decide you're happy and enjoying yourself. But the thing is, whenever you hit those milestones, you end up just looking back fondly, hopefully, on the journey and what you did to get to those milestones. So it might be that you're thinking like, whenever I can just consistently make $3,000 a month, then everything will be okay. But then you end up just having another thing once you're there. And the whole time, really, the journey to getting to the thing is what's fulfilling. I think that's so true with the whole concept. Everyone wants to make, $100K a year in their business. It's like, once you do that, there's not like, oh my God, I did that. Like, yay. It's more just like you enjoyed the journey of getting there. Like, I hope that makes sense. But I truly believe that I've enjoyed the journey of building my business, even when it was hard, even when money felt scary tight. I look back so fondly on that time because it was wonderful and beautiful, and it grew me into who I am today. So you'll look back fondly, hopefully, at least my experience has been that, on the time building the business. So don't wish it away. Don't wish yourself to like just get to the next thing, like enjoy it while you're in it. I feel like people say that about parenting too. I've had that said to me a lot right now as Colin, at the time I'm recording this, turns 9 months tomorrow. And it's like, you can hear parents say like, you're just so ready for them to finally sleep, or you're so ready for them to finally do X, Y, and Z thing. But then once they're doing it, you're like, oh, you just reminisce on those days when they were so little, right? So just be present with it and enjoy where you are in your business right now, whatever's happening. And know that if it's really hard right now, you'll grow from it and learn from it and all of those things. And when you do get there, whatever there is for you, whatever that goal is, there's typically another there you want to get to. So if you're spending all your time chasing some version of success and happiness, you're never going to find the joy and happiness that is possible as a business owner. If it's always like, I'll be happy when I'm at 6 figures, or when I have more clients, or when I finally make passive income, or whatever it is, you won't find joy if you're just like only going to be happy when you get there, because then there's just another thing that's true in life, but it's true in business. And I wanted to apply it to business right there. So I hope you really were able to hear me as I say that. So that's my fifth. I think I said I only had 4, but I actually had 5. But that's my 5th thing to know in the early days of building a business. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed walking down memory lane with me. This is really fun to record. I know this was a longer episode, so thank you if you are still here at the end. Now, to close out this episode and this whole story time, I want to share with you, and my heart's like kind of beating fast even as I'm talking right now. I had to like pause recording and kind of take a deep breath. But I'm really excited to share this, and podcast listeners, you're going to be the first to hear this. I'll probably share on social media at some time the same week this episode airs, but you're the first to hear it because this is literally made for you. I could cry talking about this again. I'm not going to cry because that's really lame and unnecessary, but it really is like so emotional for me and such like something I'm so excited about. And I'm shocked I've kept it a secret, honestly. If I actually have kept it a secret up until the time this airs, that will be amazing. But I'm planning to keep it a secret. But I'm so excited about this. I don't even know how to begin to explain it. And there will be more episodes to come with more details for you in the next few weeks. But what this is, what this offer I talked about in the beginning is, I've created a membership. for you all amazing podcast listeners, all about how to grow your business, whether you're new at this and you're needing help getting going, or if you've been at it for years and you're like, I need help scaling, I need help getting to like $1 million business and that sort of thing. It's for all of you, and it's insider content, a community coaching, all of it. And I'm calling it Breakthrough Brand All Access, naming it after this podcast. So it's a monthly membership where you're going to get trainings from me through a private podcast, which I'm so excited about that part of it, because I know you're busy. I know I'm busy, and you clearly are someone who likes listening to podcasts. Like, you've listened all the way, like 50 something minutes through on this one. Like, you like listening to podcasts. I would imagine that right now, as you're listening to this, you're doing it on the go. And I'm hoping that as you've listened to this, you've gleaned some insight and some inspiration and some tips for your own business. And so this membership, all the content is going to be delivered through a private podcast that you're going to be able to listen to literally in whatever podcast playing app, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever you're using. Overcast, is that one of them? I think it's called Overcast. You'll be able to listen to it and all that. In that way, you're going to get multiple episodes from me a month. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but from things like a weekly pep talk episode where I'm going to give you a tip for the week and just some insight to encourage you as you go into your week as a business owner. And then also more deep dive trainings. So that's the content element. And then there's also going to be business coaching, group calls where you can literally ask me anything and get my specific take on things in your business. If you ask any of my Booked Out Designer students, we've done coaching now for about 2 years, coaching calls with them. I have group coaching, and it's really awesome. We go deep into like specific things about your business. It's one of my favorite things I've done there. And so through doing it with Booked Out Designer, I feel like we've really gotten a good system down. I'm taking that exact same thing into this membership. And you're also going to get an amazing community that you can mastermind with. We'll have calls. They're like community-based calls I'm really excited about. And then you get to ask questions too and get help from. And really get like, I'm hoping this will become your like favorite place on the internet to go ask questions, get help. I will be very active in this membership in every aspect, from like the content being directly from me to the coaching being from me, and even active in our Facebook community. So I've been dreaming about this for way too long, this concept, and I'm going to do an episode where I like explain all of it because I think it's a really fun story. But like, I've been having this idea for a long time, but it took me a long time to get the vision for it just right. And a few months ago, like I mentioned earlier, I was on a walk, get great ideas on a walk. And I finally got the vision for it right. And I just immediately started jotting in my phone, like, here's what it's going to look like. And it all just clicked. It was like I got perfect clarity of like, this is what it's going to be, and it's going to be amazing, and I'm going to do it like right now. Like, I pivoted everything I was working on. I'm like, this is what I'm doing next. And I truly believe that this is going to help you take your business to the next level, because it's going to be such personalized help. Like, I'm making this content exactly for you. You're going to be able to ask questions that dictate what is being made. And if you enjoy this podcast, I will say I imagine it's going to feel like the podcast content, but even more next level, more deep dives. I'm definitely going to do a lot more advanced content for those of you who have already built a successful business, but are trying to like, add things like scalable income, build teams and like that sort of stuff. And also stuff that's going to help you if you are just starting out, like I said. And I'm also going to be giving you a big insider look into how I run my business and how I do things. That'll be a huge emphasis on it, of like pulling back the curtain even more so. So an example, I'm actually going to record this one today, which I'm so excited about. But one of the first audio trainings that you'll get as soon as you join is called, here's the title of it, Business Finances Q&A, how I have high profit margins in my business, talking about business budgets and money-making things that I dreaded learning. So you'll get short episodes every week, like I said, to start your week, and then other content throughout the month, like Q&A episodes and deep dive trainings. So that's one of the first like Q&A episodes. I'm going to keep the Q&As like fairly short, where I'm going to be answering like a few questions and giving you, like, if you want to hear about those, you can listen to them. We'll be making it really easy to skip around in the content to hear just exactly what you need. Because like I said, I know you're busy and I want this to be content that you really do listen to and learn from. And then the next training I'm working on is going to be all about taking courses from the live launch mode to evergreen, and how I did that with Booked Out Designer and the strategy behind it, the why, different things to consider, how to still market it well and actually get people in your course when it is on evergreen. So things like that. So much amazingness. And I'm not going to share the price right now, but I will have it on the web page, the waitlist page, but it's a really affordable price. Like, I hope as you heard me talk about all that, then maybe you're like, wow, that sounds like so much value, because it's going to be jam-packed with value, but it's very affordable price. This is the lowest cost thing I've ever offered. And I'm really excited to be like bringing it to you at a price that I hope is just kind of like an easy decision. So yeah, that's the membership, Breakthrough Brand All Access. Get ready for it. You heard it here first. And again, thank you for listening all the way to the end here. Next week on the podcast, I'm going to be sharing more about Breakthrough Brand All Access with more detail. But in the meantime, go read about it. Put yourself on the wait list at elizabethmccravey.com/BBAA. Just abbreviated all that for you. So you can just click over to that in the show notes or go type that in, elizabethmccravey.com/BBAA. And then come over to my Instagram account. I'm going to be sharing more about it this week. And I would seriously, it would mean the world to me if this is something that is exciting to you. If you would send me a message, you can email me, you can send me a DM on Instagram, you can leave a podcast review, whatever way you prefer to communicate. But I would love to know if you're excited about this and what part of it you're most excited about. Like, as you just heard me talk about the private podcast content, the coaching, the community, like, let me know if you're excited and what part you're excited about. And I want to hear from you, because again, like, my heart's racing. I'm so excited about this, and I hope you're excited about it too. So that is it. Thank you for walking down memory lane with me. Thanks for like allowing me to talk about those early days of my business, because it really is fun. It's good memories, and I feel very refreshed thinking back on that. And again, like I said, think very fondly on those early days, and hope you're excited about the membership. Next week, I'm going to do another fun episode where I'll talk a little bit more about the new membership as well. So that's it. Be back next week, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast and all the way until the end. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, then I want to encourage you to check out my website, where you'll find tons of resources to help you grow a profitable and sustainable business. Over on elizabethmccravey.com, you'll find free workbooks to help you figure out things like the best headline for your sales page. There's a freebie with my favorite journal prompts to start your day with, a guide on website essentials for all you coaches, and so much more. And you'll find my top business tools. Yes, I literally list out all the major ones for you on my website, and there are tons of special discounts and offers for you guys to snag as you try these products and services. You'll also find the main ways to work with me. First, through my Show It website template shop that helps you DIY your way to a strategic website for your business. These website templates are easy to use, they're gorgeously designed, and they have all the strategy I'm teaching on this podcast just woven into them, and I have a feeling you'll really love them. You'll also find my course and coaching program for designers, Booked Out Designer. In this program, I teach you everything I did to build an in-demand design business so that you can create a thriving business for yourself as a brand or website designer. So if all of that interests you, go to elizabethmccravey.com. To access those tools and free downloads, head to the tools page at elizabethmccravey.com/tools. And to see the different ways to work with me, simply click over to the Ways to Work Together page. I hope you have so much fun exploring everything over there. And don't forget that you can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening so that you never miss an episode. And leaving a rating and review for the show, sharing it with a friend, sharing it on social media are all great ways for you to support this podcast. Thanks so much, and I'll see you again next week.